Need some spicy Time Spiral Remastered reprints, maybe some cool old border cards? Well, you can pre-order Time Spiral Remastered now from our sponsor Card Kingdom by heading over to cardkingdom.com. Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another edition of Daily Time Spiral Remastered Spoilers. And today, we've reached Red Day, and we have some pretty sweet reprints to talk about, some cool old border stuff, some black cards that slipped in early this morning, late yesterday, so we should probably jump right into it. Start talking sweet new Time Spiral Remastered cards. And we start off today with a red rare, which I think is the best, or at least most valuable, main set red card we've seen so far, and that is Reiterate. So Reiterate just forks a spell, essentially copy an instant or sorcery, but it has buyback, so if you get up to 6 mana, you can copy something and keep it in your hand. Reiterate's a little bit weird. It's like a $15 card, which is a pretty decent rare, even in a more expensive than normal set like Time Spiral Remastered. However, it doesn't actually see that much play in Commander. The only Commander where it's truly a staple is Mythics of the Niv Magus. On the other hand, it does see like fringe play sometimes with like War or Melek or Jaya, but really, it's not a staple of Commander. So why is it a $15 card? And the answer is, it's never been reprinted. The literal only printing of this card was original Time Spiral. So that means there's just not that many in existence. So even though Reiterate is $15 right now, I think that's more because the supply is low than the demand being super high, which means I expect the price to come down a lot thanks to this reprinting. The good news is, if you are playing a Commander deck that wants Reiterate, should be able to pick up your copies on the cheap thanks to Time Spiral Remastered. We also got a red mythic in Wheel of Fate. And Wheel of Fate, so what I think is happening with Time Spiral Remastered is Wizards made the decision that the free spell cycle, Restore Balance, Living End, Wheel of Fate, Hypergenesis, we'll see about that one if Hypergenesis shows up because it's banned in a lot of places, Ancestral Vision, that all of those cards are Mythics in the set. So it seems like they just put that entire cycle at Mythic. Unfortunately, Wheel of Fate is not a very good or expensive card. It's like $3-ish for its normal printing. Yeah, it's a wheel effect. The problem is, you gotta suspend it for 4 turns or find a way to cheat it into play, and that means that even though wheels are like some of the best red cards you can play in the Commander format, Wheel of Fate doesn't actually see a significant amount of play. If you look at the wheel hierarchy, you got Wheel of Fortune, you have Wheel of Misfortune, you have Reforge the Soul, then you have like Magus of the Wheel. I think all of those are better than Wheel of Fate. So if you are playing Wheel of Fate, you have either theoretically played Wheel of Fortune, Wheel of Misfortune, Reforge the Soul, Magus of the Wheel already, and you're on to like your 5th wheel because you just really want wheels, or maybe it's a budget choice. The problem is, it just takes way too long to come down, and your opponents can see it coming. This is the kind of card that makes you arch enemy. If you're just like, suspend Wheel of Fate, your opponents are going to try to kill you before it comes off suspend, so it's very risky to play, and that means the decks that do take advantage of it in Commander normally fall into 2 camps. One is decks that can cast it without suspending it. So you got like Yidris, for example, you can just cascade into it, and then it's awesome. Or Vadrock can keep casting it from your graveyard. So that's one way Wheel sees play. The other place it sees play are the decks that literally just want every wheel possible. If you've already played the 5 better wheels, then Wheel of Fate, if you still want another wheel, it is the next best option up, and that would be decks like Nekuzar, Xyrus. They're just like straight up wheel commanders, and in those decks, you just want every wheel possible. So it doesn't matter that Wheel of Fate is like pretty far down in the wheel rankings. You just want anything that can wheel in those decks, because wheels are so good with your commander. The main thing I like about this Wheel of Fate reprinting is that I think it's a good proxy option. Wheel of Fortune itself, it's ridiculously expensive now because of the reserve list. So one of the ways you can get around that is just by proxying a Wheel of Fortune, and Wheel of Fate, the text is very similar. It has enough room at the top where you can just kind of like scribble off Fate and write Fortune, cross off the suspend text, and then you get yourself a proxy Wheel of Fortune for like $3. It's still an official Magic card, and it's still got real art on it and so forth. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Maybe you just, I don't know, if you open it, proxy it into a wheel reel and put it into your decks. So Wheel of Fate, I get why it's a Mythic. They're putting the whole cycle at Mythic, and honestly, the free spell cycle is really powerful. It probably does deserve to be Mythic. It calls back to old cards. It's got a unique twist. Wheel of Fate just isn't one of the better ones of the cycle. Doesn't really see any play outside of Commander, and even in Commander, it needs a very specific narrow deck to beat out the other similar options. Red Mythic number 2 from the set, and it seems like we're getting maybe 2 Mythics for each color, and then I assume like 5 colorless / multicolor ones. So second red Mythic rare, Akroma, Angel of Fury, and Akroma is an iconic card. Like, it is certainly an iconic creature. It's massive, it can't be countered, it's got all these abilities, it's a morph. The problem is, it's not very good and not very playable, and it's not very expensive. I think it's only a couple of bucks. It's been reprinted a bunch of different times. So Akroma, the sad thing is, in Commander, it just really doesn't see play almost period. It's like most popular homes are like Animar or Kalia, and even in those decks, most versions of Kalia or Animar are actually not playing Akroma. As a Commander, Akroma is notoriously unpopular, like one of the least popular commanders. 900th, which when you consider there's not that many more than 900 legends, puts Akroma very near the bottom of the list. It just doesn't really see any play. It does see the absolute tiniest bit of play in Modern, mostly because of us. We play it on like Budget Magic, but I have seen other people like 5-0 using Akroma along with Blink effects. That's probably the best trick with Akroma, is you play it face down as a morph, and then Ephemerate or Soul Hoarder, flip it up, get the massive 6/6, but really, Akroma, it's a sweet card, and it's an iconic card, but it's another Mythic that I just don't really want to open in my pack because it's not worth much, and that's got me thinking about the Mythics. We're about halfway through the Mythics from the set, so let's do like a super quick Mythic checkup because I'm a little bit scared that the Mythics from this set just do not have much value. So if you look at all the Mythics revealed so far, really, we have one big winner in black, in Damnation. That's like a $40 card. And remember, boxes are selling for over $200. So that means packs are $6-7 most likely, maybe $7-8. So double-ish the cost of a normal booster pack. Maybe not quite double-ish, but more expensive than a normal booster pack. So what Mythics can you get? Damnation, that's a win. That's a great hit in your pack. Otherwise, I don't think there's a single Mythic that actually costs more than a pack. Akroma is like $2. Old version of Living End is like $7, so maybe you break even. Wheel of Fate's like $3. Krovax, super inexpensive at $1.69. Teferi, actually cheaper than $7.99. The Time Spiral original is only $6, so I can't imagine the reprint is actually going to sell for more than the original. Ancestral's $5, Restore Balance $3. So really, if you open a pack of Time Spiral Remastered, at this point, we have one hit out of the Mythics and then 7 whiffs out of the Mythics. So I think if you open a pack, you want to be praying hard to the Magic Gods to not hit a Mythic. You're better off hitting a rare and hoping to get a good rare than you are to hit a Mythic, because the Mythics from the set, while yes, they're flavorful, yes, some of them are iconic, yes, some of them are even playable, they're just not valuable. So try to avoid Mythics if you can when you're cracking your boxes. Next on our list, moving into the world of old border cards, we got a sweet one in Dreadhorde Arcanist. So Dreadhorde Arcanist, this card actually sees a lot of play, although the timing is a little bit weird because just a couple of weeks ago, Dreadhorde Arcanist got banned in the format where it was best, which was Legacy. This would be a card that I think Legacy players would be all about, but it was just too good in Delver Shells. The problem is, Dreadhorde Arcanist really good at casting 1-mana spells from your graveyard. Every time it attacks, you can essentially cast something that costs 1 with no extra work, and in Legacy Delver decks, your deck's already full of Brainstorms and Ponders and Lightning Bolts, so there's not really any build-around aspect to Dreadhorde Arcanist. You just like play it in the deck, and it's going to be insane. So it's banned in Legacy. The good news is, it still does see play in Historic, in Pioneer, in Modern. So we have some like Feather-style heroic decks to take advantage of it in formats like Pioneer and Historic. There's Young Pyromancer decks in Modern that use Dreadhorde Arcanist. There's some Death Shadow builds that take advantage of it. So even though Legacy is off the table, there still are plenty of places to play your sweet old border Dreadhorde Arcanist, which means even though it's not quite as exciting as it would have been a couple weeks ago, it's still a really solid old border card coming in Time Spiral Remastered. We also got Anger of the Gods, one of the key red sweepers in formats like Modern, coming with the old border, looking really sharp in the old border. So Anger of the Gods doesn't have any real specific use. It doesn't show up too much in Commander. The main Commander home is actually mass damage decks. If you're playing like Torolf or Agar, they just want you to deal damage to everything and then you get benefit from it. Sometimes Anger shows up in decks like that, but really 3 damage to everything. Commander creatures are just a bit too big for Anger to be good in most decks. On the other hand, in formats like Modern in specific, Anger of the Gods is kind of a staple red sweeper. If you need a red wrath, so to speak, in Modern, Anger of the Gods is usually the go-to. Shows up in like Gruul mid-range decks with Arbor Elf, shows up in Judd decks sometimes. There's some control decks that take advantage of it. So Anger of the Gods, it's looking good. Not a super expensive card, been reprinted a couple of times, but still looking amazing in the old border. We also got Goblin Engineer, another card that, oh man, it seems built for the old border. So Goblin Engineer, Artifact Tutor, Artifact Reanimation, essentially. And this is one that has a couple of different homes in Commander. One is, it shows up in Artifact decks, kind of just for value. If you're playing like Doretti or Breya, you're getting artifacts in and out of your graveyard. Goblin Engineer, pretty good in decks like that. The other home for Goblin Engineer in Commander is as a combo piece tutor, essentially. Decks like Zerta, for example, have specific artifacts they want to be able to go infinite. Something like Basalt Monolith just goes infinite with Zerta. So Goblin Engineer is kind of just a tutor to find your combo piece. Same with Kroll that goes infinite with Death Render, I think. You can get it in the graveyard, get it back out, proceed the combo off. So that's kind of the use of Goblin Engineer in Commander. Also shows up in Modern a little bit. Either sometimes in just Urza decks as like a kind of value piece, or more commonly as a way to find Thopter Foundry's Sword of the Meek, because it tutors up both combo pieces. Sword of the Meek doesn't mind being in the graveyard. You don't even need to reanimate it. You just get it in there and then it'll come back on its own. So Goblin Engineer, worth a few dollars. Wasn't printed that long ago in Modern Horizons, but still looks great in old border. Very playable card. Sticking with the old border theme, we got Monastery Swiftspear, one of the best 1-drops in red that has ever been printed, a true staple of formats like Modern. See some legacy play as well, where it comes in alongside Goblin Guide, sometimes Soulscar Mage, in just straight up bird decks, in prowess style decks. Only worth a couple of bucks, but I expect this version to be the most in demand and be worth a lot more than its normal printings. We also got Alesha, who smiles at death, which is an okay card. It doesn't really see constructed play. We've brewed with it a tiny bit in Modern, but it's never really caught on in Modern or Legacy. But being able to potentially reanimate something every turn is powerful. In Commander, I think it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th most played Mardu Commander, which might sound great, and it's not bad for sure, although there's only, I think, like 40 maybe Mardu Commanders, might even be less than that. So being top 5 out of 40 is a little different than being top 5 out of like 1,000 or however many legends exist. But it does see play in Commander, ranking behind Edgar Markov, Queen Marchesa, Callie of the Vast, Sir Gwed, but Alesha is on the list, so the old border version probably going to be a popular choice for Commander decks, and who knows, it is costed competitively enough that it's not impossible. There's some combo or something that allows Alesha to break out in a format like Modern eventually. We also got Kiki-Jiki Mirror Breaker, probably one of the best old border cards in red that we've seen today. And Kiki-Jiki, if somehow you don't know what it does, oh man, first, it looks amazing. Look how good the dragon looks in the background of the old border version of Kiki-Jiki. It just looks so sweet. But Kiki-Jiki, it's one of the most combo-y creatures in the history of Magic. It combos off in essentially every format that it's played in. In Commander, there's like an infinite number of infinite combos. Not truly infinite, but there's a lot of ways you go infinite with this. Restoration Angel, Village Bellringer, make infinite copies of Bellringer or Restoration Angel. There's Conspicuous Snoops combos that allow you to just win the game on the spot by stacking goblins on the top of your deck. You take infinite turns with Time Stream Navigator, do some janky untap stuff with Vizier, Pestermite goes infinite, World Gorger Dragon to blink all your stuff every turn. There's Thornblight Staff combos. So really, if you see your opponent reveal a Kiki-Jiki or play a Kiki-Jiki in Commander, don't think, okay, they're probably gonna like copy their Muldrifter and draw a couple cards. No, that's not what Kiki-Jiki does. Kiki-Jiki is played because it goes infinite. That's pretty much the only reason it sees play. The same is mostly true of Modern as well, where in Modern, there are decks built around going infinite with Restoration Angel. There's a Splinter Twin style combo decks, where Kiki-Jiki goes with Deceiver Exarch, Pestermite, and like, is it control? Is a win condition to go infinite? So Kiki-Jiki, I think this is a good one. Is he's playing Commander, is he's playing Modern. It looks great in Old Border. It has been reprinted a bunch of times, so it's not like a $100 card, but it does have some amount of value, and the Old Border version, going to be the sweetest that they've printed yet. We also got a couple of random black Old Border cards. Grey Merchant of Asphodel, Liliana's Triumph. These ones, not 100% sure on. I love me some Grey Merchant of Asphodel, and it isn't standard, which is kind of cool. You can technically get copies and play Black Devotion with the Old Border version in standard, which I love. Hopefully it comes to Arena, but I don't know. It's not like super stapley. And then Liliana's Triumph, probably the worst black Old Border card. It just doesn't really see play anywhere. It's not bad. It's a 2-mana edict, but it's just not really a card that people play in any format. So I'm not really sure why Liliana's Triumph is on the list, but more black Old Border cards to kind of round out the set. While Grey Merchant, Liliana's Triumph might kind of be meh Old Border cards, we did get a couple more really good black ones, including Yawgmoth Thread Physician, which is probably not quite Thoughtseize level, but might be the second best black Old Border card. Currently like $20 for the Modern Horizons printing. Looking great in Old Border, and this is a card that actually sees a lot of play. It is the second most played mono black commander behind Carrick, so it sees a ton of play leading commander decks. Also shows up in the 99 of a lot of commander decks, especially decks that care about counters in one way or another, like Hapatra, Yawgmoth can proliferate. Atraxa, Yawgmoth can proliferate. Marin can proliferate experience counters if you want to. Plus, you got the graveyard synergies to sack, to draw, and etc., etc., etc. So Yawgmoth really heavily played in Commander. Also, it sees a bit of play in Modern in one specific deck, which is there's essentially a Yawgmoth combo deck where you're looking to use Yawgmoth to go infinite with two of Geralf's Messengers / Sangreroot guys, because you can keep removing the -1/-1 counter by sacking the other one. You go back and forth, back and forth. You drain your opponent out of the game with Geralf's Messenger coming in to play infinite times, or you just play a Blood Artist, and then you can do it by sacrificing Strangleroot guys without having Geralf's Messenger. So there is a Modern home for it as well. The other thing I wanted to mention, not just about Yawgmoth, but Old Border cards in general, is people have been crunching the math a little bit on foil Old Border cards, and oh, good lord, are they going to be expensive. People figured out that to open one copy each of every Old Border card, it's going to take something like 90 boxes. 90 boxes. I think on average, there's one foil Old Border card every 27 packs, so you're going to get slightly more than one per box on average, which means the good Old Border cards, the Ponders of the world, the Yawgmoths, the Thoughtseizes of the world, the foil versions of these are going to be ungodly expensive. So keep that in mind. If you open a good foil Old Border card in your box, that's probably going to go a long way towards paying for your box all by itself. Of course, it's also kind of a crapshoot, because you're probably only going to get one per box, and your one could be Liliana's Triumph, and then you're going to be really sad, because I don't think Liliana's Triumph is going to be super expensive. But if you get a good one in foil, whew, it is going to be very valuable. We also got Vampire Hexmage, which is a reasonable Old Border card. Vampire Hexmage kind of does one thing as far as competitive Magic is concerned, which is removes counters from Dark Depths to give you a 20/20 Merit Lage, maybe on like turn 2 or something. There are Turbo Depths decks in Legacy that are built around this combo. Also sees a tiny bit of play in Vampire Commander decks. Removing all counters from any permanent does mean it's 2-mana Planeswalker removal. And there's some other shenanigans with counters on things. Get rid of a Walking Blister or something. But not super heavily played in Commander, but a little bit with Vampires. So, good Legacy reprint. A little bit of Commander demand as well. We also got Stinkweed Imp, which also does one specific thing. The good news about Stinkweed Imp is it does that thing in Modern, it does it in Legacy, it does it in Vintage, which is, this is a dredge card. If you are playing a dredge deck, Stinkweed Imp is I think, the second best dredger in Magic, behind Golgari Grave Troll, which means it always finds its way into dredge decks, going from Modern with Prized Amalgams back to decks in Vintage with Bazaar of Baghdad. If you're trying to dredge your graveyard full at lightning speed, Stinkweed Imp is the card you want, and it looks good in the old border, and I bet it's at least kind of expensive, because I think there's going to be like Vintage dredge players that want to update their decks, and when you consider how infrequently the foils are going to show up, I think it's going to be worth a pretty penny. We also got another black main set Mythic in Living End, and Living End, the black member of the free spell cycle, and unlike Wheel of Fate, Living End actually does have a home in Tournament Magic, which is the Living End deck in Modern. It only sees play in this one specific deck, but when the deck is named after a specific card, you know that that card's pretty important to it. So the Modern Living End deck, basically, you just cycle a bunch, then you use As Foretold or a Cascade spell to get around the suspend aspect of Living End and play it right away, get back a whole graveyard full of random janky cycling creatures, and trust that your Horror of the Broken Lands or Desert Ceradons or Windcaller Avians are going to get the job done, especially since Living End gets rid of all of your opponent's stuff too. So even though it only shows up in one deck, it is important to that deck. Right now, normal copy is about $7, so not a great Mythic, but it is one of the more valuable of the free spell cycle, so not a horrible Mythic either. Wrapping things up today with a couple of bulk rares, some lower rarity stuff. Giant Ballard making her return in Time Spiral Remastered. A sweet card does see a tiny bit of play or used to in Legacy. Sometimes shows up in Commander, although it's definitely not a staple in Commander. But it's been reprinted a ton of times. It was the face card of a pre-con deck that had really high supply, so it's worth like literal $0. In Sudden Spoiling, kind of the same. It's kind of a mixture of like a pseudo Wrath with a black fog in Commander with split second. The problem is it was in the True Name Nemesis Commander deck, I believe, and that one sold 1 million copies, so there's just so many copies in existence that it's hard for it to be worth any meaningful amount of money, but it is not a bad Commander card if you want a black fog that can kind of be a Wrath if you get the timing right. We also got more lower rarity stuff. Black has, again, just an absurd amount of removal spells at lower rarity. Limit is going to be interesting because essentially every other black common or uncommon kills things in one way or another. So I don't know how you ever stick anything against a black deck. As far as red, I mean, some more limited stuff. Brute Force as a red giant growth very, very rarely shows up in janky constructed decks, but really stuff that's rounding out your decks in Time Spiral Remastered Limited. So anyway, that brings us to the end of our daily Time Spiral Remastered spoilers for today. So what do you think? Which card from today are you most excited about? What old border card? What do you think about Wheel of Fate? Are you going to use it to proxy? Are you going to actually suspend it? Are you going to cheat it into play? All the other reprints as well. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be back tomorrow with more Time Spiral Remastered spoilers. So until then, everyone, have an amazing day, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.